In the quiet town of Oak Ridge, justice and prejudice collide when a white police officer publicly humiliates a black woman during a routine traffic stop. Unbeknownst to him, she's the town's new judge, and their paths are destined to cross again in the courtroom. As the town's deep-seated corruption is exposed, both lives are upended in a high-stakes battle for truth and redemption. Will she seek revenge or uphold the justice she's sworn to protect? As hidden connections and buried secrets rise to the surface, Oak Ridge will never be the same. Oak Ridge, a quiet southern town known for its traditional values and insular community, is about to face a reckoning. Officer Ryan Mitchell, a respected yet rigid enforcer of the law, has always believed in his authority, until the day he pulls over Sharon Williams, a black woman who doesn't seem to belong in his town. What starts as a routine traffic stop turns into a humiliating encounter, with Ryan publicly berating Sharon, blinded by his own prejudice. But what he doesn't know is that Sharon is the town's newly appointed judge, sent to bring reform to Oak Ridge's broken justice system. As Ryan's world is turned upside down when he finds himself facing Sharon in court. Over accusations of misconduct, he must come to terms with the damage he's caused. For Sharon, the dilemma runs deeper. Should she exact revenge on the man who humiliated her, or uphold the principles of justice she swore to protect? As the courtroom drama unfolds, both are forced to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves, their pasts, and the hidden connections that bind them. In this gripping novel of redemption and reckoning, Beneath the Gavel explores the thin line between justice and revenge, the impact of prejudice, and the unexpected twists of fate that can change everything. With the weight of a town's future hanging in the balance, two lives collide in a story that will leave you questioning the very definition of justice. Physical description: late 30s, tall and graceful with a commanding presence. Her dark brown skin contrasts against her tailored professional wardrobe. She has expressive, deep-set eyes that convey both warmth and determination. Her hair is styled in natural curls, usually pulled back in a neat updo. Backstory: Sharon grew up in a working-class family in a large city, where she was instilled with a strong sense of justice from a young age. She excelled academically, becoming the first in her family to attend law school. Her passion for justice led her to become a judge, and she was specifically appointed to Oak Ridge to bring reforms to the town's outdated legal system. Despite her outward strength, Sharon carries the burden of past racial discrimination and is determined to ensure that no one else has to endure the same. Physical description: mid-40s, stocky build, with a clean-shaven face and closely cropped blonde hair. He has pale blue eyes that tend to harden when he feels challenged. His face is often set in a stern expression, and his uniform is always perfectly pressed, a reflection of his strict, by-the-book demeanor. Backstory: Ryan was born and raised in Oak Ridge, following in the footsteps of his father, who was also a police officer. He holds deep pride in his role, believing that law enforcement is the backbone of society. However, his world is steeped in the traditional views of his upbringing, leaving him blind to his own racial biases. Ryan views the law as black and white, and this rigidity is tested when he faces Sharon in court. His arc is one of self-reflection and a painful realization of his role in perpetuating systemic injustice. Physical description: early 40s, with light brown hair that she usually keeps in a neat bob. She has soft, round features and warm brown eyes. She often dresses in casual but well-kept clothing, reflecting her role as a supportive wife and mother. Backstory: Deborah is a homemaker and Ryan's emotional anchor. Though she loves her husband, she has begun to question his rigid beliefs. She grew up in a more progressive household but adapted to Oak Ridge's conservative culture. Throughout the story, Deborah acts as a bridge between Ryan and Sharon, offering her husband a perspective he has long refused to see, and ultimately helping him confront his prejudices. Physical description: late 50s, balding with a round face and graying hair at the temples. He wears glasses and favors well-tailored suits, always appearing polished and authoritative. His body is slightly overweight, reflecting his indulgent lifestyle. Backstory: Mayor Thompson is a lifelong politician and one of the town's most influential figures. Though outwardly a champion of tradition, he is more concerned with maintaining his power than with justice or fairness. He's resistant to Sharon's reforms and represents the old guard of Oak Ridge. Beneath his polished exterior, he harbors secrets about the town's past that directly impact Sharon's appointment in Ryan's case. Description: the heart of the town, featuring a large central fountain and surrounded by small, locally owned shops and the town's courthouse. The square has a vintage charm, with cobblestone streets and well-maintained greenery, but it also reflects the town's old-fashioned, conservative values. Town events and public announcements are often held here, making it a symbolic space for community gatherings. Description: a grand, historic building located in the center of town. Its neoclassical architecture features large white pillars and marble steps leading up to heavy oak doors. Inside, the courthouse has a sense of formality with dark wood paneling and high ceilings. The courtroom itself is an imposing space where the weight of tradition and authority is palpable. This is the setting for much of the novel's dramatic confrontations. Description: a modest suburban home on the outskirts of town. The interior is warm and welcoming, with simple but comfortable furnishings. It reflects Deborah's nurturing personality, with family photos on the walls and a cozy atmosphere. The home serves as a place of reflection for Ryan, where he grapples with his internal conflict, and Deborah often tries to steer him toward understanding and compassion. Description: a sleek, modern space located in the courthouse. Sharon's office is a sharp contrast to the rest of the building, filled with contemporary furniture and vibrant artwork that reflects her progressive outlook. It's a place where she strategizes and prepares for the reforms she's determined to bring to Oak Ridge, symbolizing her fight against the town's entrenched ways. Description: a small, old-fashioned building with a worn facade reflecting its long history in the town. Inside, the station feels cramped and utilitarian, with faded paint, outdated equipment, and a rigid, hierarchical structure. Ryan's desk is covered with paperwork and case files, representing the weight of his duties and his belief in the necessity of order. Setting: the Mitchell household, early morning. Key events: Ryan is still reeling from Sharon's reveal as the new judge. He vents his frustration to Deborah, expressing how undermined he feels. Deborah, concerned by his narrow-mindedness, gently suggests that perhaps the town needs change. Ryan brushes off her concerns, asserting that Sharon's reforms will bring chaos. This moment solidifies his desire to fight back against Sharon's influence. Cause and effect: Ryan's denial and anger toward the situation push him toward a path of resistance, further distancing himself from the concept of reform. Deborah's unease signals that Ryan's conflict will extend beyond his professional life. Setting: Sharon's office, courthouse. Key events: Sharon discusses her plans for reform with her assistant, Lauren. She focuses on investigating cases of police misconduct and ensuring accountability, which puts Ryan and his colleagues under scrutiny. Sharon reviews recent complaints about police bias in Oak Ridge, hinting at a deep-seated problem within the force. Sharon's resolve strengthens as she decides to make her first target a review of the police department's protocols. Cause and effect: Sharon's commitment to justice creates direct opposition to Ryan, who sees this as an attack on his authority. Her reforms are no longer abstract. They are targeting the very institution Ryan cherishes. Setting: Oak Ridge Police Station. Key events: Sharon makes an official visit to the police station to discuss her reform plans with the police chief, who begrudgingly complies. Ryan, present during the meeting, attempts to assert dominance by subtly undermining Sharon's authority. The tension between them is palpable, and the conversation becomes heated. When Ryan dismisses her reforms as unnecessary interference, Sharon, unshaken, makes it clear that things are going to change and the department will be held accountable. Cause and effect. This confrontation escalates the personal stakes between Sharon and Ryan. Ryan feels further threatened, while Sharon's determination grows stronger. This scene foreshadows their upcoming battles, both personal and professional. Setting: the Mitchell household. Key events: Deborah, disturbed by Ryan's growing anger and inflexibility, reaches out to a friend who works at the courthouse. She learns about the police misconduct cases Sharon is investigating and begins to see Sharon's side more clearly. She contemplates confronting Ryan about his role in the town's issues but worries about the strain it will place on their marriage. Cause and effect. Deborah's internal conflict creates a rift in her relationship with Ryan. This scene sets up her role as a potential mediator and introduces the possibility of her aligning with Sharon's vision for change. Setting: Oak Ridge Town Hall. Key events: the mayor holds a town meeting to address concerns about the new reforms Sharon is pushing. Ryan attends, along with other key town figures. Many in the town are resistant to the changes, but a few progressive voices, including Deborah, cautiously speak out in support of Sharon. Ryan feels increasingly isolated as he realizes that his authority may be slipping. He makes a veiled threat during the meeting, warning that the town's stability could be at risk if the reforms continue unchecked. Cause and effect. Ryan's threat signals that he may take drastic action to preserve his authority, increasing the stakes. Deborah's subtle shift in support for Sharon indicates the growing divide between her and Ryan, creating tension in both their personal and public lives. Setting: the courthouse, records room. Key events: Sharon digs deeper into old case files, uncovering evidence of systemic corruption and bias within the Oak Ridge police force, some of which directly implicates Ryan. She learns about cases that were dismissed or mishandled, revealing a long history of injustice. Sharon decides to use this evidence to pressure the police department into compliance with her reforms. Cause and effect. Sharon's discovery of corruption provides her with a weapon to challenge Ryan's authority, heightening the stakes. The town's deep-seated problems begin to surface, threatening Ryan's position and the trust of the community. Setting: the police station, Ryan's office. Key events: Ryan feels the walls closing in as rumors about Sharon's investigation circulate through the police department. His colleagues begin to distance themselves from him, fearing they may also be implicated. Ryan becomes increasingly paranoid and desperate, contemplating extreme measures to protect himself. He decides to take matters into his own hands and gathers information about Sharon's personal life, hoping to use it against her. Cause and effect. Ryan's desperation pushes him toward morally dubious actions, deepening his role as the antagonist. His desire to protect himself at any cost sets up future confrontations with Sharon. Setting: the Mitchell household. Key events: Deborah finally confronts Ryan about the corruption she's heard about and asks if he's involved. Ryan lashes out, accusing Deborah of betraying him and siding with Sharon. Their argument escalates, and Deborah realizes that Ryan's refusal to change is not just about the town, but also about his inability to see his own faults. She begins to distance herself emotionally from him, contemplating whether their marriage can survive. Cause and effect. The conflict between Ryan and Deborah reaches a breaking point, creating a personal crisis for Ryan. This moment pushes Deborah closer to aligning with Sharon's reforms and sets up a potential alliance between the two women in later chapters. Setting: Sharon's home. Key events: alone at home, Sharon reflects on the personal cost of her fight for justice. She feels isolated and exhausted by the resistance she faces from the town. Her assistant, Lauren, visits to offer support, but Sharon admits she is starting to doubt whether the town is ready for the change she wants to bring. Lauren reassures her that change is always met with resistance and encourages her to stay strong. Cause and effect. This scene humanizes Sharon, showing the emotional toll of her battle for justice. It sets up her inner conflict for future chapters, where she will need to decide how far she is willing to go to achieve her goals. Setting: Oak Ridge Police Station. Key events. Ryan leaks personal information about Sharon to the press, hoping to tarnish her reputation and discredit her reforms. The story, which involves Sharon's past, cases and controversial rulings, spreads quickly through the town, turning public opinion against her. Sharon learns of the leak and realizes that Ryan is behind it, but she refuses to back down, vowing to expose the truth about the town's corruption. Cause and effect. Ryan's leak escalates the conflict, turning the public against Sharon and increasing the pressure on her to give up her reforms. This sets the stage for a more direct confrontation between Ryan and Sharon in later chapters. Setting. Oak Ridge Town Square. Key events. Sharon faces backlash from the town after the leaked information is circulated. People question her integrity and fitness to serve as judge. During a town hall meeting, Sharon defends herself against the accusations, but the public remains divided. Some residents, including Deborah, begin to rally behind her, believing in her vision for change, while others are vocal in their opposition. Cause and effect. Sharon's ability to hold her ground in the face of public scrutiny strengthens her resolve. This scene sets up a more intense political and social battle for the heart of Oak Ridge. Setting. The courthouse, Sharon's office. Key events. Deborah visits Sharon privately and offers her support, revealing that she believes in Sharon's vision for justice. She confides in Sharon about her strained relationship with Ryan and the growing tension at home. Sharon is surprised by Deborah's support but is grateful for the ally. The two women form an unexpected bond, united by their desire to see Oak Ridge transformed. Cause and effect. Deborah's shift in allegiance signals a major turning point in the story, where Ryan's world begins to crumble from both personal and professional fronts. This alliance between Sharon and Deborah strengthens Sharon's position and opens new possibilities for action. Setting. The Mitchell household, night. Key events. Ryan spirals further into anger and paranoia, feeling betrayed by his wife and the town he's sworn to protect. His desperation leads him to consider extreme measures, including sabotaging Sharon's upcoming legal reforms. He begins to plot a way to force Sharon out of office by leveraging his connections within the police force and local government. Cause and effect. Ryan's spiral into desperation sets the stage for a final confrontation. His willingness to go to any lengths to preserve his power foreshadows a climactic showdown between him and Sharon in the coming chapters. Setting. Oak Ridge Courthouse. Key events. Sharon presents her findings on the corruption within the police department to the town council. Ryan, desperate to stop her, confronts her publicly, accusing her of having ulterior motives and using her power for personal gain. The town watches as the confrontation unfolds, with both sides passionately arguing their case. As the tension reaches a boiling point, Deborah steps forward, revealing her own insights into the corruption and supporting Sharon's claims. Cause and effect. The public confrontation brings all the tension to the surface, setting up the final resolution. Ryan's last-ditch effort to stop Sharon fails as the truth comes to light. Setting. The police station. Key events. In the aftermath of the public showdown, an investigation into the police department is launched, leading to Ryan's suspension. The town begins to turn against him as his role in the corruption is exposed. Ryan is left alone, having lost the respect of his colleagues, his authority, and his family. Cause and effect. Ryan's downfall marks the resolution of his arc as he faces the consequences of his actions. This sets the stage for Sharon to move forward with her reforms. Without opposition. Setting. Oak Ridge Town Hall. Key events. With Ryan out of the picture, Sharon is able to implement her reforms. The town, though initially resistant, slowly begins to adapt to the changes. Sharon reflects on the journey and the personal cost it took to achieve justice. Deborah thanks her for standing strong, and Sharon looks forward to continuing the fight for fairness in Oak Ridge. Cause and effect. Sharon's victory over the town's corrupt system is complete, though the personal cost of the battle is evident. The story ends on a hopeful note, with the promise of a better future for Oak Ridge. The Oak Ridge courthouse was packed with tension as the town council gathered to hear the final presentation of Judge Sharon Williams. The whispers in the crowd were a mix of support and skepticism, but all eyes were on Sharon as she prepared to reveal her findings on the deep corruption within the Oak Ridge Police Department. Ryan Mitchell sat toward the back, his jaw clenched and his hands gripping the edge of the bench. He had come here to stop her, one way or another. He had already discredited her in the press, but somehow, she hadn't been silenced. As Sharon stood at the podium, her calm demeanor masked the storm brewing within her. She laid out the evidence meticulously, detailing years of misconduct, racial bias, and corruption that had been swept under the rug. Case after case, her words painted a damning picture of the police department's complicity in perpetuating injustice. She was methodical, her voice unwavering. Ryan shifted in his seat, his heart pounding. He felt exposed, vulnerable. His name wasn't directly mentioned, but he knew it was only a matter of time before Sharon revealed his role in the corruption. Just as Sharon began to outline the reforms she intended to implement, Ryan stood up. His voice was sharp and cutting. This is nothing more than a personal attack. You're using your position to settle a score, twisting the truth to suit your agenda. The room fell silent as Sharon turned to face him, her eyes calm yet fierce. Officer Mitchell, this isn't about settling a score. This is about holding people accountable for their actions. And that includes you. Ryan's face reddened, his frustration boiling over. You think you can just waltz in here and destroy everything this town stands for? You're no better than the criminals you claim to fight. Before Sharon could respond, another voice cut through the room, Deborah Mitchell. She stood up slowly from her seat, her voice trembling but resolute. Ryan, stop. You need to face the truth. All eyes turned to Deborah as she stepped forward, her eyes fixed on her husband. You've let your pride blind you for too long. This isn't about you, or even about Sharon. It's about justice. And if you can't see that, then you're part of the problem. Ryan stared at her, speechless, his world unraveling before him. He hadn't expected Deborah to take Sharon's side, and the betrayal stung more than he could have imagined. Deborah turned to the council, her voice growing stronger. The corruption Sharon is exposing is real. And Ryan, he's been part of it. I've known for a while, but I didn't want to believe it. The room erupted in murmurs, and the weight of Deborah's words crashed down on Ryan like a tidal wave. He slumped back into his seat, the fight leaving his body as the truth settled in. The aftermath of the council meeting was swift and decisive. An investigation into the police department was launched, and Ryan was suspended pending the results. The town that had once respected him now turned its back, and his colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling to be dragged down with him. Ryan sat in his office at the police station for the last time, packing up his personal belongings. The walls that had once made him feel powerful now felt like a prison closing in around him. His career was in ruins, and his personal life wasn't far behind. He had lost everything: his reputation, his authority, and worst of all, Deborah. She hadn't spoken to him since the council meeting, and he knew that their marriage, already fragile, was now beyond repair. As Ryan walked out of the station for the final time, the weight of his choices bore down on him. He had believed he was protecting the town, enforcing order, but in reality, he had been protecting his own ego. And now, it had cost him everything. With Ryan out of the picture, Sharon was finally able to move forward with her reforms. The investigation into the police department brought to light even more cases of misconduct and corruption, and Sharon worked tirelessly to implement changes that would bring justice to Oak Ridge. The town, though resistant at first, slowly began to adapt. The tension that had once filled the air started to dissipate, replaced by a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change for the better. One afternoon, Sharon stood in her office, looking out the window at the bustling town square. Lauren entered, a stack of papers in hand. "Looks like the reforms are starting to take root," she said with a smile. Sharon nodded, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over her. "It's been a long road, but we're getting there." Lauren set the papers down on the desk. "Deborah Mitchell stopped by earlier. She wanted to thank you." Sharon turned, her eyes softening. "How is she?" "She's healing, I think." It's been hard for her, but she's stronger than she knows. Sharon nodded, thinking back to Deborah's brave stand at the council meeting. She's a good woman. I hope she finds peace. Later that day, Sharon walked through the town square, taking in the sights and sounds of a community in transition. There were still challenges ahead, but for the first time, she felt like Oak Ridge was moving in the right direction. As she passed by the courthouse steps, she paused, taking a moment to reflect on everything it had taken to get here. The struggles, the resistance, the personal cost. But in the end, it had been worth it. Sharon smiled to herself, knowing that this was only the beginning. There was still so much work to be done, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. The fight for justice had been long and hard, but it wasn't over, and Sharon was ready for whatever came next.